Remember the days before we started spending 4 or 5 or even 6 hours a day on our phones? And the days before the infinite scroll of Instagram or TikTok or almost any other app? Enter the all-new Light Phone 2, a credit card-sized companion phone with an e-ink touchscreen display, a Wi-Fi hotspot, calling, texting, and the essential tools in a phone that actually respects you.
Now, phones are incredibly powerful, and I love having a phone because it enables me to do more than I ever could. I can go to other countries and take a picture of a menu in Chinese and read it in English. But all of this comes with a cost. Now, having a smartphone is extremely powerful, but because we look at them so much, companies compete for our attention, and we find that we end up having more notifications, more emails, more just overall distractions in life, and they try to suck us into using the phone longer. The longer you stay on Instagram, the more money they make. And that's not to say it's bad, but a lot of people are saying that because of that, they're ending up having a lower quality of life. People find that they compare themselves to Instagram models. People find that they don't sleep well because they lay in bed and continue scrolling through for hours and hours. Now, all of these are reasons that the company I'm about to talk about came out with their original phone, the Light Phone. The original Light Phone could actually only make phone calls, and while some people really liked this, many found that it was very difficult to get by in the modern world by only making phone calls. So the company decided to make a sequel, the Light Phone 2, which I have right here, which enables you to do a lot more than that. With that being said, this, for most people, will not be a total replacement phone. For some minimalists, maybe it will be, but it's really intended to be a companion phone for most of us. We're supposed to be able to have a second phone that if I want to maybe go to a baseball game with some friends or go to a concert or go somewhere that I want to be interacting with my friends and not have the distraction or the temptation of a smartphone in my pocket. And so for that, I will be diving into this in this video and figuring out whether or not this phone is actually a viable solution or if it's just an optimistic concept that isn't really quite refined enough yet. I want to start off by giving you a physical tour of this device, then I'll get into the interface of it, and then after that I want to do some tests on here to see how well the microphone and speaker actually work, and then finally I'll talk about the pros and cons that I found after using this phone for a week. Now right off the bat, there are two colors. This is the black one. There's also a light gray version, and the black one, as you can see, is definitely more of a medium gray as opposed to an actual black, and that's because it's intended to blend in and match the e-ink display on the front. Now, this is made out of some type of plastic, possibly polycarbonate, I'm not entirely sure, but it feels relatively durable. If I drop it, I'm not worried about it breaking. And on the top, we have the power button next to the headphone jack. The headphone jack, admittedly, I was concerned at first because I thought having a headphone jack for phone calls might mean that they don't have Bluetooth. Fortunately, that is not the case. They do have Bluetooth on here. They have Wi-Fi and GPS. Wi-Fi is interesting because even though this will never access the internet, it still has Wi-Fi, so you can easily manage contacts from maybe your laptop, for example. You can download contacts through Wi-Fi onto the phone, which is very convenient. On the right side, we have 3 buttons. We have a volume up, a volume down, and a middle button, which kind of acts as your menu button or your home button. The interface is a little bit different than you're used to, so I'll show you that later on. Now on the bottom, we have a micro USB power supply, which originally they did promise USB-C, but I believe they decided that would be too large. So to keep the phone small, they used a micro USB. Then they have a microphone right there. And on the left side, they have a SIM tray. This should work with most major carriers. And depending on who your phone carrier is, you could be able to have a duplicate SIM, meaning you have a SIM in your smartphone as well as in this one, and you can have the same number on both. Now for me, I've just been transferring my SIM over. It's just been easier for me to do that instead of calling and figuring out how to get a duplicate SIM. It was just easier for me to do that. On the front, we have a speaker up top, obviously. Then right next to that, we have a small little sensor, which is your ambient light detection, which is actually very nice because in the daylight, obviously e-ink is fine, but at night it's really hard to see. So this detects when it's too dark and it turns on a backlight. And it is a touchscreen with haptic feedback as well. So when you tap on something, it does give you a nice little vibration. So you feel it, you know that it's responsive. But let's get into the interface now and see what this phone does. Now, admittedly, this is an early version of it. In the next rollout, they said that they may bring some extra features. So for now, all we're really doing on here is we do have a hotspot. So I'll show you where to get that in a second. You can call, you can text, and there is an alarm on here. But other than that, you don't have too many features on this phone. So right off the bat, if you hit the menu button, you get 3 options right there: phone, alarm, and settings. Now, phone, of course, is going to allow you to see all of your texts and your calls in kind of a conversation view. So if I go and tap on any single person, you can see the text on either side along with the date, as well as you'll see phone calls pop up there as well. Now, when you're in the conversation view here, you can call from the bottom left, or you can go to the bottom right and send a message. Now, sending a message brings up the keyboard. The keyboard is not bad, actually. It turns sideways. And while you don't have autocorrect and you don't have swipe texting, so it is a little bit slower, the haptic feedback does make it easier to type, believe it or not. It does help when you hit the letter. And I've been pretty accurate. I haven't really had many typos. It just takes a little bit longer to send a message. Then going back, if we hit the X on the bottom center, that brings us back to the phone, and you can scroll down, so you can swipe to scroll. And again, being e-ink display, it's a little bit slower of a refresh rate there, so it's not going to be the fastest scrolling, obviously. But if we go to the bottom left and we go to the dial pad, you can call any number you want. You can add a contact from here, and it's really pretty straightforward from there. Now, hitting the menu button again, we'll go back to the options. We can go to alarm, which is very simple. You just type in a single alarm. From what I can tell, you can only have one alarm at a time. Then lastly, if we go down to settings, there's surprisingly more settings than I thought, considering there really are not many functions for this phone. But you can turn airplane mode on or off. You can change your notifications so that, choose the dial tone or choose the tone for that. So there's so much more to talk about with this phone than just what I can cover in this video. So I'm actually using this for 2 weeks straight, and I will make a video in the next week to show you what I found from the first 2 weeks of this. So if you want to see that, make sure you go down and click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss that video. I found that the battery for me easily lasts 2 days, although they say if it's under light use, like very light use, it could last, they said, up to 7. I find that hard to believe. So you go down to preferences, and here you can change things with like general right there is going to change like the keyboard layout or your time layout. Then if we go back, so the screen is usually very responsive. Sometimes it is a little bit slow in the corners. We can go to phone, we can go to display or passcode. Now display, we can actually change this to invert the colors to look like a classic Kindle Paperwhite, where it's like a white with black text. So either one works. I prefer the one that blends in with the phone screen a little bit better. Setting a passcode is a possibility. Then if we go down to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, this is where you get your hotspot, and it is a 4G phone right here. So that right there is what it looks like when you get a phone call. You can either answer or reject it, and that is the ringtone. Hey, what's up? All right, cool. I'll be right down. So let's do a quick speaker test, starting with my Galaxy S10 for reference.
This is an audio test.
And now a speaker test with the light phone.
This is a speaker test for the light phone. Now this is a microphone test. I'm talking on the light phone right now, so we'll see how this sounds.
So as you can tell, the speaker is clearly not as loud, and neither the microphone nor the speaker are the same quality as a flagship smartphone, but it definitely gets the job done.
So getting into some of the pros and cons, I want to start with the pros here. I think that it does have a semi-premium feel. It definitely felt better than I expected, considering it's a small plastic device. Feels pretty durable, and I'm not worried about that. I do like the headphone jack. That's definitely a big plus. The Wi-Fi hotspot is a huge one, as well as the connectivity with Bluetooth and GPS. So as they roll out more features on this, I think that it will definitely be a very capable device for a lot of daily use. This also is able to receive emojis, but not pictures. So if somebody's texting you and they send you a picture, unfortunately, there's no way for you to actually see that picture. But like I said, if you get emojis, I don't know how to send them on here, but you can definitely receive them and see at least what other people are saying. It does not have a camera, which I think is both good and bad. So other positives, I like that text drafts are saved. So if I type out a whole text and then I leave the screen and then I come back, the text is still there. Pretty standard, but it's nice that they actually do have that. And then it's also honestly pretty easy to type. I thought it would be more difficult with this kind of weird keyboard layout and no autocorrect, but realistically, I had no problem typing, except it just took a little bit longer. So some of the cons, obviously this is a very new style of phone, so there are some bugs here, and it's obviously not a smartphone as well, so I can't judge it based on those criteria. But what I found that could be fixed, and there are things that are a little bit of a small drawbacks here. The first one is that there's no text navigation. So if I type out a whole word and I want to change the first letter, I can't go back. I have to hit backspace and delete the entire sentence or the entire word to change the letter that I want to. Also, not receiving photos is a drawback because even if you take your SIM out and put it in another phone, you can't re-receive the photo that's already there. So I wish there was a way for maybe on Lightphone website or whatever to have it like redirect towards like an email or something so you can at least see that picture later on from a laptop. There is some ghosting. Obviously, that's normal with e-ink displays, where if you go to the next display or next screen, you see a little bit of the previous screen, but it does refresh every, I don't know, 8 or 10 letters you type or something like that. So also you cannot switch to a second phone call or even get a notification. So if I'm on the phone, somebody calls me, doesn't even ring, and I have no idea they're calling. So that's a weird thing right there. I'll just get a beep and it'll tell me that I missed a call. So if you go to their website, you'll see that they did talk about adding a lot of features to this in the future, including maybe Uber on there, or you could have like Google Maps to just navigate places. They talked about having maybe ebooks or having a music player on here, having a calculator, having a timer and a stopwatch. But right now, it's tough to have so few features on a phone and get by on a day-to-day basis. But regardless, some of the things I would like to see on here that maybe they didn't mention, I wish they had voice memos. Because it's kind of hard to type and take notes on here, taking a voice memo I think would be a really nice way to just save reminders or shopping lists or whatever you need to do. Also, I think an always on display would be nice where it just tells you the time like all the time. I think that would be great. As an e-ink display, it shouldn't use that much energy. And then lastly, like I said, I wish there was a way to see the photos online that people send to you so that you don't just lose them forever and have to text them and ask somebody to send it to email instead. So overall, guys, this phone is $350 right now. Now, obviously that is kind of a lot of money considering what it does. Calling, texting, hotspot, and alarm. Those 4 features at $350 is very steep, but you have to keep in mind that this is a very early startup. It's a brand new phone concept. So I imagine as they increase their quantity and as they increase their ability to do more on this phone, it'll definitely drop in price and increase in features, and it'll definitely become more worth it. So right now, it's really out there for early adopters, for people that think it's a really cool idea and they want to back it. So I'll drop a link in the description to go and get yours if you want. But for most people, I would say it's definitely a great concept, but if you don't have an extra $350, it's very understandable that you'd maybe want to wait a little bit until they add more features and until they drop the price even just a little bit. So guys, I thought this was a very interesting phone, and I'm very excited to talk about it more in my next video. So make sure you subscribe and click the like button if you enjoyed this video. As always, guys, thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.